Put it right there.
Hit it, get it.
There. Don't put it there. It's gonna be distracting.
Right.
Come on, it's gonna go off and then it's gonna make.
No, my phone is always on silent.
Don't put it
You know,
there.
it doesn't even vibrate.
No.
How do you know when it goes off?
Care.
That's why he missed the text message about the
Dude,
podcast.
hey,
What questions?
ask yourself
That's
the
why.
question: who communicates faster and better, me or Sal?
That's true. That's true.
You know what, dude? Hey,
Sal is like
10,000%.
I'll send Jared Stevens a text message, and then 3 months later he'll respond to me.
that's
I pride myself in my response capabilities.
Damn, dude. All right.
Got it.
Welcome to the training edition of the Tactical Games podcast. So we're here with two of our coaches from the Complete program, from the Dry Fire program, Sal Hernandez and
Mary Heppner.
Mary Heppner. There we go. All right, I knew Jacob, I think is his name. Anyways, so we're here today to talk to you guys a little bit about the training programs, why we do them, what they're for, and kind of the difference between maybe somebody who's training to compete in the sport of the tactical games and somebody who's training to better their job, to get better in law enforcement, or maybe they're EMT or first responder of some sort. So first thing we're going to start out with is exactly that. So if you guys could, let's hear a little bit about the difference between training for sport and then just kind of training for life or for a career. So if you want to give a perspective on being a law enforcement officer, kind of how training has changed since you've gotten into the tactical games.
So for me, I feel like they kind of overlap in a way now that I've done this for a while. I do feel like the training for competition has helped me tremendously at my job. Tremendously. It's changed the way I also train at work. Before I used to train on the firearms side was slow down and make your hits.
Yep.
Be very precise. You can't miss any shot in training. But then if you look across nationwide, officer-involved shootings are shooting fast. Shooting fast, and they're shooting a lot of rounds. So it's like, why are we training this way? But this is really happening.
Sure.
So I started speeding up my training, started training to failure on the firearm side. And it's helped me a lot. It's helped me actually become more accurate, because then when I actually slow down, things have sped up from the original slow, because my slower is now faster than what it used to be.
Sure.
So it's helped me out a lot. Shooting some long range too in tactical games has helped me a lot when I go back to sniper training.
Yep.
Being really comfortable with knowing my holds as far as like 700-800 yards and feeling really good with that. And on the physical side, it's helped me tremendously with being stronger.
Yeah.
So like before, I was used to just be a straight runner. Used to run a lot of half marathons, Spartan races, and used to feel good about just being a long distance runner. And then I got into tactical games, eyes opened up, and had to get stronger. And it's applied to being able to carry kids out of the house and carry equipment from our vehicle to the scene.
Yeah.
Just a lot more confidence overall.
How many kids have you carried out of a house?
I've had to carry one kid out of a house before.
See, one time. I just
Yeah,
want to make sure
one
you said it like
Yeah.
it was like a Thursday thing.
Yeah,
like.
we had an incident. We had to carry some kids out one time.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah.
Well, so now you've taken, because when I met you, you were a runner. When I first started competing in the tactical game, Sal was like a pretty skinny dude.
And then you put on a lot of weight.
You've changed
and got
dramatically.
strong.
And
I got
now
sponsored
you're one
by
of the
Chick-fil-A.
strongest guys.
Dude, that'd be a killer.
Shout out Chick-fil-A if you're looking for any athletes. Well, I'll take a sponsorship.
But no, yeah, 100%. It opened my eyes to what I was really weak at. And that could have translated to work, right? One of our bigger guys gets shot in the line of duty, you have to drag him out. There's no way I could pick him up back then.
Yeah, 100%.
Now it's like, man, the biggest guy on the team, full kit. I feel confident picking him up and dragging him out of the house.
That's awesome.
So for me, that's what tactical games has really opened my eyes to. And it's helped me train the guys I work with and other law enforcement across the U.S. and kind of say, hey, man, you need to start working on these kind of things here to be better at your job. And it helps you in competition.
Yep. I mean, the overall lifestyle change too, right? Like, it's so common. It was common in the military, and I'm sure it's common in law enforcement, but people don't put emphasis on health and well-being.
Oh, for sure.
It's you're dealing with the hard things that happen at work. You tend to, like, I know when I was in the military, a lot of guys, a lot of girls they drink. That was like the thing to do. It's like a coping mechanism, I think. Now, seeing people get more active and like having something to do Saturday morning, Sunday morning, instead of like, dealing with that hangover, I think that's a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, so for me too, going on with that, like, we'll have work in the morning, I get off of work, I go home and I'm working out again to try to train for the next tactical games. And,
for sure.
Or I'll go shoot at the range with my wife and we'll go prepare instead of going home and just kind of hanging on the couch or even
Kicking
drinking,
back,
like you said. And it's like, it's made me push myself harder than I ever have.
That's awesome. Yeah.
How is like what you eat and drink changed because like you look at it and you think like people tend to look at me like, oh, I'm going to make a change in my fitness life, and that's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
It's freaking great. But then you get later on down that road, you realize it's not just what I'm doing in the gym, it's what I'm putting in my body that allows me to do things in my gym. So like when you started tactical games, how does it change? Because I've heard that like I've talked to Austin about this too, a little briefly in Vegas, and I wanted curious in your thoughts. Like, has it changed like what you eat? Like, I still need to eat Chick-fil-A, but maybe not as much.
Not
maybe
every day.
Yeah.
Or like drinking less, or what does that look like?
It's changed a lot. So for me, I wasn't eating a lot back then.
Yep.
So like for me, it was putting
Undereating.
a lot more food in my body. Now I eat a lot more, especially if I'm at the range all day or like we have training for work.
Yep.
So for me, it's about putting in a lot more calories and the right calories, right?
Yeah, dense
than what I
foods.
used to. Yep.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that changed a lot. Not eating out as much and not drinking as much.
Yeah.
So back then it was like, I'm gonna have a couple of beers tonight, and then
For
that
sure.
added up to like 3 nights in a row.
Yeah,
And now it's like I can't do that when guys like this guy and Jared don't drink. So it's
I
like
drink once a year.
So
2
that's-
beers later.
So hearing this and meeting guys like this and Jared, like or like Jacob and Jared, it's changed my lifestyle a little bit, because if these guys are my competitors and they're the ones living a better lifestyle, I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of got to change my habits to be able to stay up top.
For sure. And if you think about it, like a case of beer is what, $20?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What does the dry fire program cost? You know what I'm saying, right? Like people always say,
That's your pitch.
I can't afford something.
Don't drink on Wednesday nights. It's that.
They say they'll make an excuse like, hey, I can't afford a gym membership, but
yeah.
like you drink 3 nights a week,
Yeah.
you can
That's
easily supersede that.
That's always the big thing. Like, obviously, I come from a different space, but like from the CrossFit space, we always hear like CrossFit membership is obviously a little more expensive than dry fire program.
Yeah,
We're
sure,
talking
sure.
like $150 to like maybe $200 a month, depending on where you're at.
Yeah, yep.
And the biggest qualm is always like, I can't afford that. And it's like usually what we in the CrossFit affiliates, what they tell people is like, well, how many times do you eat out a week?
Yeah.
Okay, or how many times do you go get a Starbucks coffee that costs you?
Right.
At least when I go buy, I'm not a black coffee kind of guy. It's like
yeah, I've seen you
$6.
frat pay.
Yeah, exactly. So like, how can you cut that back, and then can you focus more on your health and well-being instead of on spending things that are frivolous to a degree?
Yeah, sure. So now let's talk about, we've talked about training for a job. Now let's talk about when your job is training for sport. You know, how has your training changed since you left the CrossFit space and now that you're into the tactical game space?
Yeah, I was actually having that conversation. I actually had that part of this conversation with Janae a couple weeks ago. She messaged me. That was nothing like important or anything. She messaged me and she's like, "How has it changed?" And I was actually telling her this story. I answered her, but I told her the story today at the range today. And I said, every now and again, I'll jump into a CrossFit workout. Let me define CrossFit workout. Like CrossFit you can go push a sled and call it CrossFit. It's whatever you want to call it, right? But like how I define CrossFit, different than what we train, is like higher skill gymnastics, higher skill barbell work. I usually tend to say that's more CrossFit-esque, right?
Yep.
And so like every now and again, I'll jump into a workout with Olivia if I know that I can beat her in it. So like a couple days ago, it was like, well, number one, I knew she did a bunch of GHD steps, so I know she was taxing the core, and it was a bunch of toes to the bar, and I was like, we do a lot of grip. And toes to the bar and chest to bar pull-ups, like it's still good for pulling, but like it doesn't directly carry over the tactical games, but it's a lot of grip, and we do a crap ton of grip, right? And so I jumped in and did that workout with her, but like it has absolutely changed from, you're not going to see me snatching as much or as often. You're not going to see me squatting as much as often. You're not going to see me doing, toes to bar and muscle ups and bar muscles much, because it doesn't transfer over.
Right.
Is it still important? Sure. Like if I'm Sal and I'm like, I got to get over a fence, that's technically a bar muscle up to a degree. Not going to hit a hollow arch really well, but you get the point. And so I still think it's important to every now and again still have those skills, but practicing those skills on a daily internet basis, wasting my freaking time.
Right.
So like instead, now it's focused on, okay, what directly correlates over to tactical games, which is stuff we do on the program, right? It's, we're going to be doing interval style. We're going to be doing a lot of interval style. We're going to do a lot of zone 2, a lot of aerobic capacity. We're going to do a lot of sprints, also some anaerobic work. And then the strength we do is going to be directly applicable. Like I'm not going to be like, I have yet to throw a snatch in there because while it is great, and I think a snatch is phenomenal for developing explosive movement, and you'll see some of us, like Jared Stevens is a great example, like he's still used that ability to snatch on movements we'll see this year for nationals. But like it's not going to be a direct correlation. So instead we're going to be doing sumo deadlifts, lots of deadlifts, lots of power cleans. We will do some overhead work, but not as much as we would do if we're doing CrossFit. So it definitely it's a different flavor. And I will admit, it's taken a long time, where when I first transferred into sport in 2021, I was still, even 2022, I was still doing CrossFit. In 2023, I decided, why?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point?
Well, like the snatch and developing a snatch takes so much time to do it well, right?
Yeah.
So if you only have a fixed amount of time to work out every day and you're going to work on snatch development, you're taking 15 to 20 minutes out of an hour training block that you might have to throw something in there that's not applicable. But I agree. The need for balance, the need for explosivity, the need for shoulder stability and core stabilization, it's there.
It applies. It's just there are better usages of your time that apply more one-to-one.
100%.
Like handstand push-ups.
Yeah. Is that what's in every?
No, it's not.
Program is just freestanding handstand push-ups.
Every now and again, I'll go on a whim on programming. I like to add movements in every now. Like we have definitely done toes to bar and complete. Every now and again, I'll add them in, just get a kick out of it, or burpee pull-ups more often than not.
Well, and Heppner said his phone is always on silent, which is really funny that this happened. Greek goddess.
That's my wife and my phone. Dude.
Oh, God. Okay. All right, so...
That's brownie points right there.
So we're so is there anything else for you, Sal, that's changed about, how you've trained before versus how you train now? So when you started out in the tactical games, what's the difference between how you were training and how you're training now?
Yeah, that's changed a lot actually since the beginning of 2019 when I first competed in March 2019 at Reveille Peak Ranch. Was more of more of a runner, longer aerobic capacity. So for me, I had to get more explosive. So power cleans, deadlifts is what I incorporated. Became like a weekly thing, and I try not to miss any of those workouts. Even a busy work schedule, that's one thing. Like the two movements I try to focus on.
Because every now and again I see you lift. That's all I see you doing.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah. It's two of my favorite lifts, and it's helped me a lot in tactical games. So for me, it was actually finding what I was weak at, and incorporating that into my training. And like little by little, every tactical games, you're going to have something you're going to be weak at. You're not going to be perfect at every event, so you have to take into consideration whatever that was weak at and add that into your training. So for me, it was actually strength. So strength and explosive movements, and actually being able to jump and push things high. So I had to work on a lot of, I guess,
like getting stuff off the top shelf. Anything getting off the top shelf.
Yeah,
I understand for you too how that would be hard.
It's tough.
It is, it's tough. But my wife has really long arms.
There you go.
He married up.
But yeah, I would say for sure, definitely the strength portion. The shooting has always been pretty consistent across the board with accuracy. But for me, it was actually turning up the speed and pushing the cadence between shots. So before it was like rifle shots were like at a 3 to 5 second cadence. Now I'm pushing my cadence to like 1 second or less. And same with pistol. Pistol was like 3 to 5 seconds, trying to be super precise, punching out holes. But it's like, it's acceptable accuracy. So I don't need to be in 3 second cadence when I could save 3 seconds every shot. That adds up to 30 seconds over the whole weekend. And that's huge when you're competing against the top athletes.
Oh yeah. And that was something that, like, even in my training, like, obviously I don't shoot to the level that you guys do, but learning about cadence in my shots and where I can start, where the wheels start to fall off. And then pressing to that point, like you were talking about with training, and then seeing where it breaks.
Oh yeah.
Now, so you talked about it a little bit. What do you think the importance is of law enforcement officers practicing proficiency in firearms?
I think it's, to me, there's a lot of, I don't want to say old school because some people get really upset with that, but there is an older training mindset of like, hey, we're accountable for every round. And that's very true. You are. Like if you miss and you shoot somebody else that's not supposed to be shot, that's 100%. Not a good day, right? But if you never push to that level, how are you expecting to actually perform to that level when it actually happens?
For sure.
Right? If you can go on YouTube and watch videos all day long of officer-involved shootings, shooting fast, retreating back, moving. And to me, working with some companies and training and learning on my own, I've learned that, hey, I need to start training to that level and beyond it, pushing my red line and others so that when the time comes, we're ready and we can expect to actually perform to a certain percentage of that.
Right. And that's like, it's no different than a snatch like we were talking about, right? Like if you train to a 275-pound snatch, which I don't know if I've never had
272.
272 pounds. So 272-pound snatch. That's obviously going to make a 185-pound snatch better, right? So that's kind of the correlation.
So yeah, the comparison I always make is like from a CrossFit perspective is I was never going to be the winner of 100% max.
Right.
It's never going to happen. That was not going to happen. But if I can move my 75 to 80% better than everyone else, 75 to 80%, I knew I could win. I could do much better because how often I'm okay taking yanking and taking crap points on a strength workout if I know the next workout I can do well. And the same perspective goes back to what Sal just said of like, you take what you look at. If I have a finite amount of time and I say to myself, okay, well, how did I do it CrossFit? How did I do it in my last tactical games? And what I laugh when I see is that people are like, what's a good example? So I've got a guy in my barn training to go to regionals, make it to the games. And he was like, hey man, I need to start swimming. He's a terrible, I know Sal's bad. But this
is a good swimming.
That's that doggy show, right?
Yeah. Okay. This guy's worse than Sal. Okay, so he's a good friend of mine, terrible at swimming, and he's like, I'm gonna start swimming more. And I'm like, okay, so you're gonna put your time into swimming for some points that you might make it to the games. I was like, you're already gonna get last there. So instead, you need to put that into other areas that you can. It's like, do you take your finite time and say, where do I need to improve at? So if you look at practice score or look at CrossFit or whatever, and you say, where did I lose points at? If I have an hour, how do I put every minute for my points in here to improve? Is it, like for me, for instance, is like, okay, am I gonna lose a lot of points because I have in the past in shooting only action stages? And so I have to be like, I need to improve on that because those are the stages where it's the punt team on football. That's the biggest amount of point swing is in those short stages.
For sure. And because our sport is scored differently than CrossFit, that makes a huge difference as well. So your performance-based scoring, what do they call it? Z
score, whatever.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, your score is relative to the top performer's score. So if Jacob snatches 272 pounds and then Sal snatches 300 pounds, Sal gets first place and Jacob gets whatever percentage of 300.
It's essentially just like grading on a curve back in the day in school.
Exactly. Did you get graded on a curve when you went to school?
Dude, at homeschool? It was either me and my sister. One of us was taking 100%.
All right, so, we obviously, you came in with a shooting background and got better at fitness. Jacob, you came in with somewhat of a fitness background, I guess, and then you got better at shooting. So let's talk a little bit about how you got more proficient, kind of how you got there.
Yeah, so mistakes were made.
My favorite video though is the one you showed us where you had the target, you scooted up, and you scooted up closer, like 2 yards away. That's one of my favorite videos.
I got some great videos. I think I made some mistakes where I deleted a lot of those old videos. I wanted to do a series where I just kept posting crappy videos, not crappy, but just wow, look how far you've come every Thursday kind of perspective. Because I was absolutely I think there absolutely does exist more information on the sport now than there did back when I started, which would have been 2021, mid 2021. Yep. Yeah. And so I trained for it wrong. I decided I'm gonna compete in one Tactical Games event. If I like it, I'll continue to do it. If I hate it, I will never do it again. And I'll just see you guys. And I really started falling in love with just the community of trash talking leading into it. But the problem was I didn't have anyone around that was teaching me how to train for it. I had no information. I'm just I don't know what we're shooting. I had no stinking clue. Right. And luckily at that time, for instance, Matt Kimson showed up and gave me a little bit. But I didn't actually listen, or I don't even know what I was doing wrong. I was training for USPSA essentially, and I was throwing dog trash at USPSA. So I was training for Tactical Games USP, how fast can I draw and reload? That's not going to help at all. So I showed up and quickly realized, wow, I am doing this all wrong, and then had to go back and say, okay, I was focusing so much on the shooting aspect was focused on USPSA, which is wrong, but then I was focusing so much on combining the fitness and shooting together, which there's a time and a place for that. For sure. It's like doing a full workout for CrossFit, but instead take it back to an elemental part and think, okay, well, if I want to improve at Fran or my muscle ups in a workout, I need to improve on arch hollow and my pulls for muscle ups. So the same can be said for CrossFit or for Tactical Games is if I want to improve at the sport of Tactical Games, break it into its elemental parts. And for me, it was the shooting. And so what did I suck at the shooting? Well, all of it. Yes, exactly. The fundamentals, literally
Well, actually mounting your scope the right way.
What's that?
Let's just say the base layer. Everything needed help, right? And so I essentially toned it back completely, went and spent a couple days with Jared Halbert, and he helped me out quite a bit, and then just found experts around me to help me at fundamental, and just focus on, instead of doing complex things how do I hold the darn thing?
For sure.
How do I pull the trigger and I go, we still do it, right? We just talked about it. Every now and again it happens, but how do I do some basic stuff? Because I see a lot of people in our sport that jump into complex things really fast. Right. Yeah. And it's the people who are successful to focus on the boring as hell things.
The fundamentals.
So going back to that, a lot of the newer Tactical Games competitors I've seen that come in, they just want to jump straight into the fitness, but not understand the actual fundamentals of the firearm side.
Sure.
I see that
they combine the two things together
immediately. And I think there's you have to separate the two. Do I still do both just like you? Absolutely. but most of my focus is either firearms and fitness separately.
And I think it changes throughout the year. So like, as soon as nationals is done, I will only focus on basics of firearms, and then my fitness will change to like just strength focus, right? But like not like cardio, whatever, conditioning. But then as we get closer to a season, it will start transitioning a little bit more to fitness and firearms combined a little bit, like percentage wise. And then like a month out from nationals, that's all I do. Like I'll dry fire or do some couple of like doubles drills or whatever. But like it's not going to be like I'm just going to be slow firing, just shooting.
Right.
It's going to be I am only focused on the amount of points, because you look at a sport and you say, where do the points lie at? Points lie at this. Okay. Unless it changes, points lie here. This is what I'm going to focus. But I'm not going to focus the whole year, because you have to lead into it with a good plan.
For sure.
So.
And as somebody who scores, or at least sees every one of the scores from every one of the events, it is no doubt that the shooting is the biggest deficiency in our sport. And that's not to say that people aren't good at shooting or okay at shooting. I mean, we require a pretty high amount of precision.
Oh yeah.
It's not like we shoot some tough targets at some tough distances, and we do our best to ensure that people understand their offsets, they understand their dope, they understand everything about their weapon system, and we challenge distances like that. So it's not just knowing how to squeeze a trigger, it's also understanding your weapon systems pretty well.
Yeah, so like today, like we did a skirmish today, and you scored my target. I learned to dial recently.
No.
Okay.
Surprised you know what that is.
The problem is, because I've been practicing dialing so much, I haven't really focused too much on holds, because I'm like, why? Like I don't have to
just
worry.
dial it.
Yeah.
I'll just dial everything. And then I completely forgot that when we shoot canted, I have to hold.
Yep.
I'm not going to dial for canted. And so today we shot some canted shots, and I sucked at those canted shots.
I saw.
They sucked. And I quickly realized, I was like, I'm an idiot. Like I need to dial it back. I had a week to say, okay, and that's more than enough time to get back to where you're, because when you do holds or do certain things, you automatically know, hey, if I'm shooting 125 yards, I'm going to aim here. But when you learn to dial, you're like, oh, I don't need it. And do that thing.
You know what I find really interesting about dialing is we have the opportunity to set multiple targets on it.
And I have the opportunity to write on my hand 2, 3.
I hope to God that I watch you one time shooting a 100-yard target and dialing, and then shooting like a 70-yard target and dialing back and strings of fire.
I have not gotten to the point where you do a hybrid approach where I'm like, I can dial to one and then shoot the others based upon it. That is not, maybe next year, probably not. That'll be a little bit way, that's pretty complicated. That's a John Hatcher question, but I'm like, I'm not doing that. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, though, is a lot of people jump into it without even getting the data that he's gotten.
Like, for sure.
Data, your holds out to 500, your holds inside of 25 yards or 50 and in, and then being able to dial, hold over, and pistol, canted, 90 degree, 45 degree.
And I think it's important to say, because like, I know you and I both don't, it's not sexy, but you and I both do a lot of it, is we get a lot of data on things. So like, I might go out there and shoot, we talk about like just shooting. We might be out there shooting, but the shooting is just like, I'm just getting data. So as soon as I learned how to dial, the first thing I did, and I didn't even ask him because I was like, he will tell me wrong on purpose just to see me fail, is I'm going to go out there and true the rifle and then dial it, and every 25 yards, check my dial all the way out to 300 yards to make sure, does it make sense? Is it fitting what I'm doing? Or is it a little bit off, and can I take data and say, okay, for some reason at 200 yards, it's off, and this is why. But like, I think Sal and I spend a lot of time when we just shoot is just getting data on things.
So you're not going out and you're not blowing 200 rounds in a training day. You're gonna spend 20, 40, 60
I'm
rounds.
gonna spend, like today I spent an hour, because I sucked at candid, so how am I going to practice it? I'm not going to practice it in a workout. Instead, and I know he does the same thing, is I'm going to put a piece of paper out there, and I'm going to shoot 45 degrees and 90 degrees, 3 rounds each at 25 yards, and then back off to 100 every 10 to 15 yards. And then I'm going to do pointed aim is not changing, and I'm going to see my impacts, and then I'm going to measure them and take them back, and that way I can take that as my card, I'll cut it out, that I can use going forward.
Put it on the fridge for Kelly to see.
I literally have targets on my fridge.
All right, so next thing I want to get into is the difference of training for sport versus training for a career, right? So we talk about it, and I know this is Heppner's favorite topic, like GPP versus SPP, right? So what do you see as the difference between somebody who is competing to, or somebody who's training to compete in the national championship by somebody who is training, say, who's a law enforcement officer, who's looking to get better, wants to get more fit, wants to kind of improve their overall?
So I'll let Sal go first, but let's quickly define the alibi, the people first. So we have 2 people we have.
Let's say we have one person that's like 5'6". They train for
It's not
the
me.
sport.
I'm 5'7.5".
5'5". They train for, like, they're competing in the tactical games. That's
Okay.
their job.
Oh.
Vice, somebody who is
Law enforcement, but still wants to do tactical games.
Correct. They're a shift worker.
Okay.
You know,
Good.
they're doing everything that they can.
That's a good definition.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go with me?
Yeah, I'll go first. So for me personally, I feel like the training definitely correlates back and forth for me.
Sure.
For tactical games specifically. If I wasn't doing tactical games, say I was doing another competition that didn't require the amount of physical demand, I guess, to compete at that high level.
Like USPSA.
Like, yeah, so if I was just doing pistol shooting, I think my training would be a lot different. I would not be training as hard. I wouldn't be pushing as hard. I'd be more prepared to be just ready to go to work.
Agile and light. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So just be ready to go to work. But I do have a, incident that happened years ago when I was new to SWAT was we did a hard workout that day, smoked our legs. We go do a jump on a guy. He has a rifle. We start chasing him. And I remember my legs and body was just so smoked that it was hard to keep up with him.
Yeah.
Was it Murph?
It definitely was not Murph.
I thought you told me the story already.
Maybe it was. I can't remember.
Someone told me
But I just
that,
remember
yeah.
I was so tired and it was humid and it was terrible and just trying to run and chase and keep up with him. I knew that I was like, man, I got to be very smart about how I train.
For sure.
Yep. So like being able to train every day has actually programmed my body to recover faster. Now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm hardly ever sore because I train so hard now. It's like back then it was like a hard training day, wore me out for like 2 days.
The diet helps with that tremendously
Oh,
too. Fueling your body, refueling your body, making
Yep.
sure that it's got reserves to go to.
So like for law enforcement officers out there, you need to actually know like how hard to push it some days. Because some days you shouldn't push it as hard if you know you're going to have a long operation.
For sure.
Or if you have to get up early, if you're going to have a 10-hour call out. Like some days we have call outs that are like 10 to 20 hours.
Yep.
So like I need to be ready for that. I can't be like, I'll be a big liability if I do a hard workout one day and I can't be ready to operate for the guys then.
For sure.
So for me, but actually training hard for the past couple of years has programmed my body to recover a lot faster.
Yep.
So.
And
for
I
me,
think
oh, go ahead.
I think that's the reason really why I see so many law enforcement officers that compete in like the tactical division.
Yes.
Because to me, that's like,
That's why you guys made it.
that's why we made
Yeah.
it. We made it for people that have responsibilities, that have jobs, that can't dedicate 2 hours to training every
Yeah.
single day. You know, they have children, whatever they're baseball coaches, whatever they might do. That's really what that division is intended for. We don't want to hammer every single competitor every single time they come out and compete. So instead, it's a place where people who are fit, who are active, who live that lifestyle can still show up, have fun, and not get hit in the face with a 300-pound sandbag.
Yep. Yeah, so GPP versus SPP.
Can you define those so everybody knows?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So GPP, general physical preparedness. Think GPP like regular CrossFit class. If we're not doing cyclically based training, like unless your gym like some gyms obviously do like a strength cycle. Like think like GPP. Like I'm just showing up to a gym doing their program.
Yep.
That's GPP.
High rocks.
Great example. Great example, right? SPP, specialized physical preparedness. That is specific to a job, task, sport task, some unique task that you are training for. Hey, my name's Nick. I want to go hike Mount Kilimanjaro. You're probably going to do something specific for that. Maybe chat a bunch with other variations of that to accomplish a goal.
Sure.
So, for the programs that we do, and to include dry fire too.
Dry fire for sure.
Is we program SPP. So we program, but I will define the counterexample to why it's not necessarily SPP.
Yep.
So like we do SPP. So we are programming, I am programming specifically, Sal is programming specifically for the tactical games to make you better at it.
Yep.
We have, hence why we're not doing toes to bar, random things we already talked about, kind of like.
Or just fast USPSA stages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know?
correct. Now, the counter to that is, does what we program still get you in shape if you're doing something just random like cherry picking? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
So does what we program get you better, as the alibi you said, as a law enforcement officer? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Is there a better solution that might exist for you? Because remember how I'm programming, remember what Sal just said is like, I did this really hard leg workout and then I had to go work. How I program doesn't take in conjunction that he's maybe doing 4 days off, 1 day on, whatever the heck he does, right? So I need the person, and I put this in the notes usually, or at least in the Facebook group, to let them know of like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know you. Because our demographic is like, we've got young kids, we've got 65-year-olds, right? And so I don't know how quickly you recover, what you eat, what your job is. So I need you to be intelligent and approach it in a way that says, hey, if I've got to do a call out and I'm on call for the next couple of days, I can't go out and do what Jacob has programmed for me.
For sure.
Now, will what I program make you fitter and better? Or what we, yes.
Oh yeah.
If you're not doing anything, yes. If you're doing cherry picking, yes. does there exist, depending upon your job, firefighter, law enforcement, I'm gonna go hike Mount Kilimanjaro, whatever, does there exist a better SPP programming for you out there if you have a specific, unique job or task you're trying to accomplish? Yes. Usually, you know,
For sure.
like, unless you're like, I want to be a competitive water ballerina. I mean,
Right.
that actually probably has a program for sure. But like,
that?
there exists that, yeah, I write that. That exists out there, but what we program definitely accomplishes GPP to a degree, but it's very SPP.
For sure.
yeah.
So it's
So-
my long-winded approach.
What would you say right now, we'll kind of end with this, what do you think the difference between your two training styles are? What do you think the difference is between the way you guys are training right now, both you two individually? One of you guys is training, like, I mean, Sal, now that you're not training for nationals anymore, what's changed about your training? And Heppner, right now, since you're training for nationals, like, what do you think are the differences between your guys' two training cycles?
Oh, between me and him.
Yeah, between you two right now.
I'll make a guess, right? And he can correct me and tell me I'm way off base. Mine is going to be very, like, ultra microscopic SPP.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to be doing, it's very similar to regionals back in the day. When they announced regional workouts for CrossFit, you've announced some workouts in the day. Now, is it important to just do stages over and over? No, because you'll be
everyone will do
trash.
that. Right.
But you're giving them ideas so that new people understand stages.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal, I freaking love it. But like regionals, like if you only practice those workouts over and over and over again, when you show up, you're only gonna be good at that. And if you qualify, you're gonna suck at the games,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So like, I am very microscopically SPP right now.
Sure.
I would imagine right now that what Sal is doing is going to be a little bit more GPP because he's out of season. He's still doing multi-gun. He's done with tactical games for a while, and he's focused on. He's got SWAT roundup.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
that'd
so I
be
would say
mine.
mine is SPP to SWAT round.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Then yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still doing a lot of strength stuff because I enjoy that now.
Yeah.
I've done it for a few years, but now we're getting ready for SWAT roundup, which is a couple days after nationals.
Yep.
So all my training is more like geared towards obstacles, sprinting, picking up a dummy, which translates to the same kind of stuff we do with
Yeah,
tactical
for
games.
sure.
So for me, the training hasn't changed too much, but it's just more focused on sprinting, more speed. For me, I'm doing more bolt gun stuff, so I have to really work on sniper shots.
So more aerobically based and less anaerobic stuff.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. More anaerobic, less aerobic.
less
Yeah.
aerobic, yep. So for me, it's just tweaked just a little bit towards that. And this year, the past 2 years I've done nationals. We've trained for roundup, so it was such a hard time was
do both.
training for nationals, training for roundup, getting home, training for nationals, in the morning roundup. So it was such a pain being able to try to balance both. And this year, a little bit relieved not training for nationals, but sad I'm not going to be there for sure.
I think it's different because like the sport you compete in, because I've watched TTPOA and SWAT roundup for the past couple of years, is like seems like you said, like it's a lot of anaerobic.
Mm-hmm.
But for our sport, tactical games, it seems we do have anaerobic pieces, but usually if we have anaerobic pieces, they're nested into an aerobic piece. Like great examples, stinking the bike in Utah.
Yep.
Right? It was like, okay.
Nevada, I mean.
Yeah, Nevada. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a 1 minute bike. Like that's anaerobic to just the T. And then you couldn't breathe because there was a high elevation.
Oh, yeah.
And then you do it 3 more times. So like it became aerobic quickly. But like our sport, if you have to choose, I feel like if you have to choose one, which you don't.
Right.
But if you have to choose one, aerobically based athletes will probably do better on the long run, only because they know how to breathe through movements, and because when we get to the line, it's not you need to be able to lower your heart rate quickly
As fast as
and to
possible,
get those shots, right? Or just in the middle of shooting, somehow your heart rate, and you and I have both seen it, like it starts like this, and then at some point it gets like this, and in the shooting sequence you're like, man, I really wish it looked like this the whole time. It didn't.
Yeah.
But I think aerobic for us, aerobic capacity for our sport is huge and underdeveloped, especially from like a lot of people just don't understand. Like every time I put in zone 2, I'm sure people are like, oh my gosh, you know, a 30-minute run, like how stupid. I'm like, yeah, but this will pay huge dividends, but not just running. I'm not making you run to run. I'm making you get you better at getting your heart rate at that pace the whole time. Because when you compete, like I've wear a heart rate monitor for a while now. Like we are always usually at 130 to 140 beats a minute. We're not. If we hit 180 or 200 beats a minute, we are not hitting the burn.
You've done something.
That's something wrong. Or I'm not shooting anymore for some reason. But yeah, that's my.
And that's one of the hardest things to teach any of the CrossFit athletes that come in, because they're so used. Any athlete, honestly, they're so used to just going as hard and as fast as they possibly can.
Because in our sport, we're never like, okay, Nick, you just rode a 2K. Now get off and do this Rubik's Cube. Or do something like throw a basketball or whatever. Like
Throw a baseball.
Yeah, yeah. Sal, that's the only workout Sal would done well. But like, we don't do anything from an accuracy that allows you to get your heart rate down. So it's really cool in this sport where it's different, where it's like, okay, yeah, in CrossFit it was, you went as hard as you can, knowing you had to pace the rest of the workout and couldn't just hit a wall and then die.
Yep,
right?
for
Okay.
sure.
So like, I'm not going to go out and sprint the first mile on Murph, unlike people that did in the games. But in this sport, you can't in every workout because we are always usually going to have to approach a line and shoot. Now, if we have a fitness piece that goes into nothing and we're done, okay, then yeah, you can push it a little bit more.
Right. That's what I love about tactical games is you can find that fine line between how hard can you go and how well can you shoot.
Is it no more shooting? Cool. I'm just going to start running.
That's what I love.
That's when the snot comes out.
Oh, you're spitting everywhere.
All right, so here's the last thing we're going to leave with this today. You're not going to get a vote. I'm not going to get a vote. So we're going to leave Sal up for this one.
Oh, no.
So I want to hear who you think the top 5 or the top 3 men's elite and the top 3 women's elite are going to be at nationals this year. Start with the women's elite first. Start with the women's elite
Let's have
first.
him leave the room for this.
That's what I think. Maybe we should just get off camera and just leave Sal by himself.
So for women's elite, so I've watched, a lot of competitors this year. Have been a lot of matches. I think I've shot 5 tattoo games this year. So I've seen everybody compete.
Yep.
So I've been tracking that. I've seen huge improvements in one person individual this year. She's kicked butt all year long. That's Janae.
Yep.
She's made huge improvements since last year. I think she'll pull away with the W. Not sure everybody's feelings. I don't want everybody's feelings here. I have a lot of friends.
Oh, I'm here for it. I'll give my vote all her feelings.
I think kind of seen her improvement throughout the last year. She's done really well in her shooting. It's gonna.
For sure.
I think she'll pull off of that. I think E will be really close behind her, finishing second. I think Megan or Blair will be right there between third and fourth.
And Tristan's not competing, right?
Tristan's not competing.
Yeah. So be close between those 4, depending on malfunctions.
Sure.
Weapons goes down,
of course.
bad stage, mental error. Could be several things, factors in nationals with so many stages. So for the men's elites, hate to admit it, but I think he'll pull it off barely.
Dude, you go first, and I'll talk about it.
But yeah, I think he'll manage to. He's putting a lot of work. Like you said, he knows how to specifically train now for nationals and for tattoo games events. So I think he's gonna his shooting's improved, especially in the 2-gun stages. I'll get off a little bandwagon.
Don't ask Nick about you.
But shortly behind him, I think it'll be a fight between Austin and Jared for sure. So that's gonna be hard to see how well either will do. I know Austin's crushed some long range rifle.
Yep.
So
my thought, Austin's good.
Austin's very good.
Dude, Austin's so good.
He's gotten so much better. I remember 2020 nationals there. I talked to him right afterwards. I think he took 4th or 5th. And I remember I told him, I was like, dude, you are so good. I was like, you're legit. And he's like, really? I was like, yes, dude. I was like, you're going to be like really good in this sport.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
He's improved a ton.
And that's the beauty of the sport is like, we can go out. You could literally lose because of one malfunction. Which
100%.
I will admit that is one thing I despise about the sport. It's like some things. Could you consider it the way I upkeep my rifle? Sure. Could it be something that's out of my control? Sure. Because like for CrossFit, you show up and it's like I can show up hypothetically naked and compete.
Yep.
And no equipment malfunctions, right? But like this sport is different, and that's just what goes along with the sport.
Well, think about a rifle 2-gun stage. You go through malfunction. Mag falls out, you trip, something happens, like that's a lot of seconds that you could lose, which is points.
Yeah.
So anything could happen at nationals. It's the best weekend and you got 3 days of it.
Yeah, you got 12 stages 12 stages. Well, if you make
11.
Well, if you make it the top 5.
But I'll tell you what, that's going to be probably the coolest thing. So I've been to 3 nationals now. This is the 4th one that you guys have.
Yep.
And I think that'll be the coolest thing in nationals this year is under the lights doing Inman. That'll be the.
Is it under the
highlight.
lights or is that Sunday under the lights?
It'll be Sunday. So it'll be it'll be under the lights.
So that'll be pretty cool. I'm sad I'm not going to be there for that. I would have been in the top 5.
I'll pick up that bag and take it.
But no, that's really cool that you guys are doing that this year, especially at Staccato Ranch. Man, I shot there last year, and it was probably one of the coolest things, like Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool for everybody out there to check out.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah. So unfortunately, we're not going to give you the opportunity to give your top 5 or top 3 because we're going to find out in a couple of days here.
Are you going to release this before nationals?
I'm going to release it tomorrow. I'm just going to upload it right now.
Yeah. Austin, I'm excited to see you.
It's right here. You've been banging on it.
But I never said. So I never said who I was rooting for. I'll keep that to myself.
We all know you root for Austin over me.
Austin, Jared, everybody.
And honestly, like whoever wins the event, men, women, whatever, like we just have a great community of people.
Yes,
like you could pick like you could easily choose 5 people in the men, 5 people in the women, and say,
Oh yeah.
whoever wins, that could be a great not sponsor for the sport, but
Ambassador.
like ambassador for the sport.
For sure.
That person would be awesome no matter if it's Austin, Jacob, Aaron, Jared, Thor, or the women is Janae, Blair. Well, I'm doing a good job. Megan.
You're doing
Just saying names.
doing good.
But like any of those people would be phenomenal ambassadors. And I'm not saying like you have to win to be an ambassador for the sport. All the people I named are all ambassadors.
All right, so we talked about this a little bit earlier. I want you to give me, and this one we'll ask, a dark horse. Who's a dark horse that you think is out there that might
You're
shake
choosing the
this
guy I'm
stuff
going
up?
to choose, aren't you?
Who? You go first. You go first.
What was the kid's name?
I know who I'm going to choose, so it's going to be Devin Miller. Love the dude, man. The guy is, dude, he's gotten so much better. So he won the run last year nationals.
Yep.
I remember
The
running
ruck.
back, the ruck run, whatever it was. I remember someone running back. I was like, who
That
is
dude's
this guy?
fast.
Dude's fast.
He's
Crazy.
fast.
He's strong. He's a
Yeah.
very good shooter. I think he's going to be.
He moves
fighting.
well. He's an athlete, and he was in Las Vegas because
Yes,
I think I judged him. Yeah, I was the judge for his lane. We're choosing the same person. And we already have talked about this on the phone multiple times. So Devin is a lot.
You guys talk about Devin on the phone.
Sorry, Devin. We're not creepers.
We did for quite some time. But like, I judge the guy, and I'm not saying the equipment doesn't make the person that's shooting, but it definitely helps, right?
Sure. Yeah.
What was the guy shooting for?
He was shooting a
Glock.
stock Glock 19 for
stock
his work.
Glock
Yeah.
and was doing awesome with a stock
Yeah.
Glock.
Yeah, it just shows you that you can't. I mean, you could buy performance, but man, you need
It
training.
helps.
You need training.
Yeah, for sure.
Training is going to make you that much better.
I think he's gonna be because he moves well. I remember watching him on a certain stage, like this dude, like
I would be
he can
surprised to not see him at the top 5 in Inman. I'd be very surprised. I'll say that.
that's my same pick.
Yeah,
your
so
dark
that's
horse?
my dark horse too. A couple guys do good. Ben Pena, Anthony, Giuliano. Though I think they'll be right there in the top.
Anthony's gonna
Sargon.
suck.
Yep.
So there'll be some guys right there in the top. I think they'll be fighting right there with them too. And Thor, Aaron Clark, a lot of good guys in men's elite. Sad to not see them this year, but
I'm incredibly excited to watch the Masters 40 plus and the men's and women's side.
man, that's going to be 40 plus is going to be spicy.
I have no idea. I have no idea who's going to win. Like obviously Kirk has done so well since he's gotten into that division, but now you have all these new competitors that came out of elite that are now getting up into 40 plus, 50 plus is going to be interesting too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool storylines this weekend, so definitely excited to share it with you guys.
I'll be uploading on Practice Score like continuously.
You already did the workouts this weekend. I heard though.
I did, yeah. So I have my score. It's not going to count, but I'll tell you.
I'm going to put it in. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us for the Tactical Games podcast. We'll see you all again soon.